The divorce papers landed on my desk at 11 p.m. I was still at the office, of course. Third night this week I'd stayed past midnight, trying to finish the quarterly reports my department head kept rejecting for increasingly trivial reasons. My wife Emma had stopped asking when I'd be home months ago. Now I knew why. "I'm sorry," she said through the phone, her voice small. "I didn't plan for it to happen like this." I stared at the email she'd sent, a scanned copy of the papers, already signed on her end. No conversation, no warning. Just a PDF attachment with the subject line, "We need to talk." "Like what?" I asked quietly. "You didn't plan to cheat on me with your boss? Or you didn't plan to tell me over email?" Silence on him run. "Both," she finally whispered. I should have felt something. Rage, maybe, betrayal. Instead, I felt nothing. And just cold. The same coldness that had been settling into my chest for the past 6 months, ever since Emma started working at Chen & Associates as Marcus Chen's executive assistant. "The annual company meeting is in 2 weeks, I said. "What?" She sounded confused. "Noah, what does that have to—" "I'll sign the papers after that." I hung up. My reflection stared back at me from the darkened window of my 20th floor office. I looked tired, older than my 32 years. But my eyes were calculating. 2 weeks, that's all I needed. 2 weeks for Emma to understand exactly what she'd thrown away. The first time I met Emma, she'd been crying in a coffee shop. That was 4 years ago. She'd just been fired from her previous job. Something about a misunderstanding with petty cash that was never quite explained. I'd offered her my napkin. She'd offered me a smile that made me forget I was supposed to be meeting a client. Within 6 months, we were married. I thought back to that now as I sat in my car outside our apartment. Our apartment. Soon to be just her apartment, I supposed. The lights were off. She wasn't home. Of course she wasn't. My phone buzzed. A text from my assistant, David. "Thompson's secretary just confirmed. He'll be at the annual meeting. All 3 board members confirmed as well. Everything's set." I typed back, "Good. Make sure the seating arrangements put Emma at table 7. Directly across from the stage?" "Exactly." I put the phone down and closed my eyes. The coldness in my chest spread, but I welcomed it. It made thinking easier, made planning simpler. Though Emma had always been good at reading people. That's what had made her so effective as an executive assistant. She could anticipate needs, smooth over conflicts, and make everyone feel like they were the most important person in the room. She had read me wrong, though. She thought I was just Noah Carter, the overworked analyst who left for the office at 6 a.m., and came home after she was asleep. The guy who never complained when she needed money for new work clothes or when her team-building dinners ran late into the night. She had no idea who I actually was. The next morning I went to the office like normal, took the public elevator like normal, sat in my cramped cubicle like normal. "Rough night?" David appeared with coffee, keeping his voice low. He was one of only 3 people who knew the truth. "You look like hell." "Thanks for the honesty." I took the coffee. "Where are we on the Henderson account?" "Martinez rejected your report again. Says the formatting is inconsistent with company standards." David's jaw tightened. 4th time this month. Martinez. My supposed department head. The man who'd been making my life miserable for 6 months, ever since I'd been transferred to this division as part of a corporate restructuring initiative. The same man who'd been feeding information about my work schedule to Marcus Chen. Let him reject it. I pulled up my email. "I want a paper trail." David understood immediately. "You're building a case." "I'm documenting patterns." I clicked through the rejection emails, each one saved in a dedicated folder. When someone's actively sabotaging an employee, it helps to have evidence. "After the annual meeting?" "After the annual meeting," I confirmed. The truth was, I'd known about Emma and Marcus for 3 months, had proof for 2, but I'd stayed quiet, kept working my deliberately awful schedule, and played the role of the oblivious husband. Because I needed Emma to believe she'd gotten away with it. I needed her confident and comfortable when she walked into that annual meeting on Marcus Chen's arm, ready to show off her successful boyfriend to all his employees. I needed her unprepared for what came next. Emma called that evening while I was at the gym. I let it go to voicemail. She called again an hour later. I was reviewing financial reports in my actual office, the one on the executive floor, with my name on the door and a view of the entire city, the one Emma had never seen. This time I answered. "Noah." Her voice was strained. "We need to talk about this." "I thought we did talk." "You sent papers?" "I said I'd sign them after the annual meeting." "What else is there?" "Why are you making this difficult?" A edge of frustration crept in. Why do we have to wait 2 weeks? Let's just be adults about this and move on. I leaned back in my chair, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and red. Are you worried about something? No, She caught herself. I just want this to be clean, quick. So you can go public with Marcus? Silence, then quieter. How long have you known? Long enough? I kept my voice neutral. Does he know you're married? We're separated. We're not, actually. You sent me papers yesterday. We're still legally married. I paused. Does he know? More silence. Emma! I almost laughed. You're still hiding me from your boyfriend? It's complicated. It really isn't. I stood up, walking to the window. From here I could see Chen and Associates building 7 blocks away. Smaller, lower. You wanted to trade up. I understand. You met someone with money and status, and you didn't want your blue-collar husband dragging you down anymore. That's not. You're twisting it. Am I? I watched the lights come on across the city. You started pulling away the moment you got that job. Stopped coming to my work events. Stopped talking about your day. Started working late more and more often. You were never home anyway. I was working. So was I, she shot back. At least Marcus appreciates what I do. At least he sees me as more than just someone to do his laundry and keep his bed warm. The words should have hurt. Maybe they would have, 3 months ago. Now they just confirmed what I already knew. 2 weeks, I said again. I'll sign the papers at the annual meeting. You can even bring Marcus if you want. Why would I bring him to your company's annual meeting? It's at the Riverside Hotel. Big ballroom, open bar. Should be quite the party. I smiled at my reflection. I hear Chen and Associates will have several people there. How do you know? 2 weeks, Emma. I hung up. The next day, Marcus Chen's email appeared in my inbox. Mr. Carter, I hope this message finds you well. I wanted to reach out personally regarding a sensitive matter. I understand from Emma that you two are going through a separation. I want you to know that my relationship with her began after she informed me of your marital difficulties. As professionals, I believe we can handle this situation with maturity and discretion. I hope there are no hard feelings, and I wish you well in your future endeavors. Best regards, Marcus Chen. Senior partner, Chen and Associates. I read it 3 times. The audacity was almost impressive. David appeared at my cubicle doorway. Did you get? I got it. I forwarded the email to my personal account, to the folder labeled Evidence. He's covering his bases. He thinks you're nobody. David's voice was tight with barely controlled anger. He thinks he can just smooth this over with a professional email. He does think I'm nobody. I pulled up Marcus's LinkedIn profile. Yale Law. 10 years at a top firm before starting Chen and Associates 5 years ago. Multiple photos of him at charity galas and networking events, always in expensive suits, always with that practiced smile. To him, I'm just some mid-level analyst whose wife decided to upgrade. In 2 weeks, he's going to choke on that assumption. In 2 weeks, I corrected. He's going to understand exactly what he's done. I'd done my research on Marcus Chen. Thorough research. He'd built Chen and Associates from nothing, leveraging connections and family money to create a boutique firm that specialized in corporate law. Successful, certainly. Well-connected, absolutely. But he had a reputation. 3 of his previous executive assistants had left within the first year. Rumors of inappropriate relationships, though nothing ever proven, nothing ever documented. Emma was just the latest in a pattern. The days crawled by. Emma stopped calling, stopped texting. I moved some of my clothes out of our apartment. Not all of them. Just enough to maintain the fiction that I was staying with a friend. In reality, I'd been living in my penthouse across town for the past 2 months. She never noticed I'd been gone. At work, Martinez continued his campaign of petty tyranny. Report rejections, impossible deadlines, mandatory overtime that always seemed to coincide with important personal events. I documented everything. He's getting worse, David observed during one of our strategy meetings in my real office. Last week, he made you redo the entire Jameson proposal because you used Arial instead of Calibri. He's feeling pressure. I pulled up an internal memo. Chen and Associates is trying to land the Jameson account too. They need us to fail. Marcus is using Emma to get inside information. Marcus is trying to use Emma, I corrected. She doesn't actually know anything valuable, because you never told her what you really do. I looked up at him. Would you tell your spouse sensitive company information if you thought they were sleeping with a competitor? David had the grace to wince. Fair point. The truth was, I'd stopped telling Emma about my work long before I suspected the affair. Not out of caution, but out of exhaustion. Every time I'd tried to explain a complex project or share a success, her eyes would glaze over. She'd nod in the right places, make appropriate sounds, but I could tell she wasn't actually listening. She'd wanted the comfortable life my income provided. She had never wanted to understand how I provided it. 1 week before the annual meeting, I ran into Emma at the grocery store. She was in the wine aisle, reaching for an expensive bottle of red, the kind we used to save for special occasions, the kind that cost more than our first month's rent together. She saw me and froze. Noah. The bottle wavered in her hand. I didn't expect. It's a public grocery store. I grabbed a cheaper bottle from a lower shelf. We're allowed to shop in the same place. She set the expensive wine back, suddenly self-conscious. How have you been? Busy, working. I studied her. She looked good. Better than good, actually. New highlights in her hair. A designer dress I didn't recognize. Subtle jewelry that probably cost more than I made in a month. Or more than she thought I made, anyway. You look different, I said. I'm taking better care of myself. She lifted her chin slightly. I should have done it sooner. Marcus treating you well? She had the decency to flinch. Can we not do this here? Do what? Have a conversation? I moved past her toward the checkout. You're the one who wanted things to be clean and adult. You're being petty. I stopped, turned back, kept my voice level and cold. Petty would be contesting the divorce. Petty would be making your life difficult out of spite. I'm signing the papers exactly like I promised. I paused. After the annual meeting, why are you so obsessed with this meeting? She crossed her arms. What does your company party have to do with our marriage? Nothing, I smiled. Absolutely nothing. I just want to make sure all the paperwork is handled properly. That doesn't make sense. A lot of things don't make sense, Emma. I turned away again. Like why you'd throw away 4 years for someone you barely know. Or why you'd lie to both of us instead of just being honest. Or why you'd send divorce papers by email instead of having an actual conversation. I tried to have conversations. Her voice rose slightly. You were never home. I was working to support us. I kept walking, but I guess that wasn't enough. Marcus appreciates me. I stopped at the checkout line, not looking back. Does he know you took cash from your last job? Does he know why you were really fired? Silence behind me. I thought about your job history, I continued, loading items onto the conveyor belt. It's interesting. 4 jobs in 6 years. Left each one under mysterious circumstances. Always had an explanation that sounded reasonable but never quite added up. You investigated me. Her voice shook. I married you. I pulled out my wallet, the one with my rarely used personal credit card, not the corporate card I actually used for everything. I probably should have investigated you before that. She didn't follow me out of the store. The night before the annual meeting, I couldn't sleep. I stood in my penthouse, looking out at the city lights, and felt the weight of what I was about to do settle into my bones. Emma would be humiliated. There was no avoiding that. Marcus would be exposed. His reputation would take a hit. And I would go back to being exactly who I'd always been, just without the pretense. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Is this really necessary? I stared at it for a moment, then dialed the number. Marcus Chen answered on the first ring. Mr. Carter, how did you get my personal number? Emma gave it to me. He sounded tired. Look, I'm calling to see if we can resolve this another way. Whatever you're planning, I'm not planning anything. I kept my voice neutral. I'm just attending my company's annual meeting. Emma's welcome to come with you if she'd like. She mentioned you've been acting strange about this meeting, making cryptic comments. He paused. If this is some kind of revenge scheme, I want you to know it will reflect poorly on you, not us. Revenge? I almost laughed. Marcus, I'm signing divorce papers. That's all. Emma will be free to be with you publicly. Isn't that what you both want? Then why wait until the meeting? Because I want to do it right. I watched a plane cross the sky, its lights blinking. I want to make sure she understands exactly what she's walking away from. She knows what she's walking away from. His voice hardened. A marriage to someone who was never there. Someone who chose work over his wife. Someone who what? I cut in. Please finish that thought. I'm curious what story Emma's been telling you. He hesitated. Someone who didn't appreciate her. I see. I turned away from the window. Did she tell you about her previous jobs? About why she keeps getting fired? That's none of my business. It will be. I smiled without humor. When she works her way through your company the same way she worked through the others. When she starts borrowing money that she forgets to pay back. You're just bitter. I'm practical. I sat down on my couch, exhausted suddenly. Marcus, I don't care about your relationship with Emma. I really don't. What I care about is that you went after a married woman, used your position as her boss to pursue her, and then tried to poach confidential information from my company through her. Silence, widened. The problem, I continued, isn't that you're sleeping with my wife. The problem is that you're a senior partner at a law firm who should know better than to create this kind of liability, both personal and professional. Are you threatening me? I'm stating facts. I stood up again, restless. Tomorrow, at the annual meeting, Emma is going to learn some things. Things I probably should have told her a long time ago. Have fun. Things that will recontextualize our entire relationship. Like what? Come to the meeting. I headed towards my bedroom. Bring Emma. See for yourself. I hung up before he could respond. The morning of the annual meeting, I woke at 5 a.m. I went through my routine methodically. Shower, shave, my best suit, the one I kept in my penthouse closet, the one Emma had never seen. Italian, custom-tailored. I stared at myself in the mirror. The man looking back at me wasn't the tired analyst Emma thought she'd married. This was who I actually was, who I'd always been. David met me at the hotel at 7 to review final preparations. She's confirmed, he said, pulling up the guest list on his tablet. Emma Carter, +1 Marcus Chen. Table 7, just like you wanted. And the presentation? Thompson approved it personally. Your name on every slide. He looked up at me. Are you sure about this? Once it's out there, I'm sure. I straightened my tie. I've been hiding for 6 months, playing a role. I'm done. The hotel ballroom was magnificent. Crystal chandeliers, round tables with white linens, a stage at the front with a massive screen for presentations. The company had spared no expense for its 15th anniversary celebration. Employees would start arriving at 11. The presentations would begin at noon. I had 5 hours to make sure everything was perfect. 5 hours before Emma walked into this room and discovered the truth. She arrived at 11:47. I watched from the side entrance as Emma entered on Marcus's arm. She wore a red dress, the one I'd bought her for our anniversary 2 years ago, though she'd claimed it didn't fit anymore. It fit perfectly now. Marcus looked confident in his expensive suit, hand on Emma's lower back in a proprietary gesture that made my jaw tighten. They made their way to table 7 without noticing me in the shadows. She looks nervous, David murmured beside me. He was right. Emma's smile was too bright, her laugh too loud. She kept touching her hair, a tell I'd learned long ago meant she was anxious. She knew something was wrong. She just didn't know what. Good, I said quietly. Thompson, our CEO, found me backstage. He was 60, silver-haired, and had built this company from nothing over 3 decades. Noah, he gripped my shoulder. You ready for this? As ready as I'll ever be. Your wife's here. It wasn't a question. My soon-to-be ex-wife. I checked my watch. She doesn't know yet. You could have told her. I could have. I met his eyes. But she never asked. In 4 years of marriage, she never once asked what I actually did. She saw the hours I worked, the stress I carried, and assumed I was just another corporate drone. She never asked why a mid-level analyst would be in so many evening meetings, why clients would call me at home, why you have your own office on the executive floor, Thompson finished. Some people only see what they expect to see. She saw what she wanted to see. I straightened my shoulders. A paycheck, stability, boring Noah who worked too much and didn't appreciate her. And now? Now she gets to see reality. The lights dimmed. The presentations were beginning. Thompson's opening remarks lasted 15 minutes. He talked about the company's growth, our expansion into new markets, the challenges we'd overcome, standard corporate celebration material. Emma looked bored. Marcus was checking his phone. Then Thompson said the words I'd been waiting for. And now, I'd like to introduce the man responsible for our most significant growth over the past 5 years. He's been working tirelessly behind the scenes, managing our largest accounts, and driving innovation across every department. Many of you know him, but some of you may not realize the full scope of his contributions. Emma's attention sharpened slightly. She whispered something to Marcus. Please join me in welcoming our Chief Operating Officer and incoming Vice President of Strategic Operations, Noah Carter. The silence that followed was perfect. I walked onto the stage and watched Emma's face drain of color. Watched Marcus go rigid in his seat. Watched the divorce papers she'd been clutching slip from her nerveless fingers. Thank you, David, I said into the microphone, deliberately using Thompson's first name to drive the point home. We'd been on a first-name basis for 6 years. I'm honored to be here. The presentation began behind me. My name, my accomplishments. Photos from client meetings and conferences Emma had never known I attended. Financial charts showing my impact on company growth. I didn't look at the screen. I kept my eyes on Emma. She'd gone white. Completely, utterly white. Marcus leaned over, whispering urgently in her ear. She shook her head, not looking away from me. Over the past 5 years, I continued, our company has tripled in revenue. We've expanded from 3 offices to 15. We've landed accounts that industry leaders said were impossible. I paused. None of that happened by accident. The presentation showed the Martinez situation. How he'd been feeding information to Chen and Associates. How he'd been deliberately sabotaging my publicly facing work while I quietly managed everything behind the scenes. Corporate espionage is an interesting challenge, I said conversationally, especially when the competitor thinks they're getting valuable intelligence, but they're actually just getting garbage. Deliberately prepared garbage designed to waste their time and resources while we close deals they don't even know we're pursuing. Marcus had gone pale now, too. We've been documenting this espionage for 6 months, I continued. Building a case. Martinez will be terminated effective immediately. And Chen and Associates will be receiving a formal letter from our legal team regarding their attempted theft of proprietary information. I finally looked directly at Emma. The question was always how they were getting their information, what weak point they'd exploited. It took us a while to figure it out. She stood up suddenly. The motion drew every eye in the room. Emma, I kept my voice gentle. Thank you for coming. I wanted to do this properly. Sign the divorce papers in front of witnesses, with full transparency about who we both actually are. You lied to me, she whispered. Her voice barely carried, but in the silent room, everyone heard. I never lied. I pulled the divorce papers from my jacket pocket. You never asked. You assumed I was nobody, and I let you believe it. That's not the same as lying. You let me think. She couldn't finish. I let you make your own choices. I descended from the stage, walking toward her table. You chose Marcus. You chose to believe I was just some mid-level analyst who didn't appreciate you. You chose to send divorce papers by email rather than having a conversation. I placed the signed papers on the table in front of her. So, here you go. Signed and witnessed. You're free. Emma looked at the papers like they might bite her. Noah, you wanted a clean break. I kept my voice level. This is as clean as it gets. You walk away with half of what we accumulated during the marriage. That's fair. That's what you're entitled to. Half of... She looked up at me. Really looked, and I saw the exact moment she calculated what half actually meant. The real salary. The real investments. The real assets she'd never known existed. Oh God, she breathed. Marcus tried to stand. I held up a hand. Stay, I said quietly. We're not done. To his credit, he sat back down. But his jaw was tight, and his hands were clenched. Mr. Chen, I turned my attention to him fully. You're a smart man. Yale Law, excellent reputation. Built your firm from nothing in 5 years. I paused. So I'm sure you can appreciate the legal implications of what you've been doing. I haven't done anything illegal, he said. His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed his worry. You've been using your position as an employer to pursue a romantic relationship with a subordinate. That's a textbook hostile work environment case. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through emails. You've been receiving confidential information about a competitor's business strategies from said subordinate, who obtained that information from her spouse. That's corporate espionage. And you've been actively undermining your paramour's marriage while knowing she was still legally bound to another person. That's just poor character. You can't prove any of that. I can prove all of it. I nodded to David, who'd been standing near the stage. He brought over a thick folder. 6 months of documentation. Emails, photos, financial records, testimony from employees at Chen and Associates who witnessed inappropriate behavior. Credit card statements showing expensive dinners and gifts purchased by you for Emma, dated from when she was still living in my home, sleeping in my bed. And wearing my wedding ring. Emma made a small sound. Almost a whimper. The thing is, I continued, looking between them, I don't actually want to destroy either of you. I'm not interested in revenge. I'm interested in justice. What's the difference? Marcus asked, his voice hoarse. Revenge is about making you suffer. Justice is about making things right. I set the folder on the table. Emma, you get your divorce. Clean, simple. You walk away with what you're legally entitled to, and we never speak again. Marcus, you get a warning. One chance to clean up your act, treat your employees properly, and stop trying to steal from competitors. And if we don't? Emma found her voice, though it shook. Then I pursue every legal avenue available. I met her eyes. Emma, you were fired from your last job because you were embezzling. Small amounts, nothing that warranted prosecution, but enough that they couldn't keep you. The job before that, same thing. The job before that, you were having an affair with a married executive and blackmailed him for money when he tried to end it. She went white again. How did you— I'm the COO of a major corporation. I have resources. I didn't let any satisfaction show. Just stated facts. I knew all of this before we got married. I thought you'd changed. I thought love and stability would be enough. I was wrong. Then why did you marry me? Her voice broke. Because I loved who I thought you were. I picked up the divorce papers, now signed by both of us. That was my mistake. I won't make it again. I turned to leave, then stopped. Looked back at both of them. Marcus, I'm going to give you some advice. Free of charge. As one professional to another. I paused. She's going to do to you exactly what she did to me. She'll be perfect for a while. Attentive, supportive. Everything you think you want. Then she'll get comfortable. She'll start spending more money than she makes. She'll start looking for the next better thing. And when she finds it, she'll leave you the same way she left me. Quickly, coldly, and with no regard for what you've built together. You don't know that, Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. I know patterns. I looked at Emma one last time. I hope I'm wrong. I hope you two are happy together. I hope you've changed, but I'm not betting on it. I walked away. Didn't look back. Behind me, I heard Emma start to cry. The rest of the annual meeting passed in a blur. I gave my presentation on Q4 projections. Shook hands with clients. Smiled for photos. Played the role I'd been playing for 5 years. Successful executive, company man. Somebody who mattered. But inside, I felt hollow. Not because of Emma. Not because of the divorce or the betrayal or any of it. Because I'd spent 4 years of my life in love with a fiction. A woman who'd never really existed outside my imagination. And instead of facing that truth earlier, I'd buried myself in work and let the marriage die slowly. David found me in my hotel room hours later. The party was still going on downstairs, but I'd needed to escape. You okay? He asked. I don't know. I loosened my tie. I thought I'd feel something. Satisfaction maybe, or closure. Instead, I just feel tired. You did the right thing. Did I? I looked at him. Or did I just humiliate my ex-wife in public to prove a point? You exposed corporate espionage. You protected the company. You gave her a fair divorce settlement and walked away. David sat down across from me. That's not revenge. That's professionalism. It felt like revenge. Maybe a little. He smiled slightly. But you earned it. She used you for 4 years. She cheated on you. She tried to steal from your company. A little public embarrassment is the least of what she deserved. I stood up, walking to the window. The city spread out below, millions of lights in the darkness. My father told me once that the hardest thing about success is that it changes how people see you, I said quietly. Some people can't handle it. They need you to be smaller than them so they can feel bigger. Emma needed you to be nobody, so she could be somebody. Yeah. I pressed my forehead against the cool glass. The worst part is I let her. I pretended to be less than I was because I thought it would make her feel secure. Instead, it just made her think I was weak. You're not weak. I know. I turned back to him. But I played weak for so long I started to believe it myself. A knock at the door interrupted us. David answered it, then stepped aside. Emma stood in the hallway. Alone. Her eyes were red from crying, her makeup smeared. Can we talk? She asked. Please? David looked at me. I nodded, and he left, closing the door behind him. Emma stood in the center of the room, hugging herself. I don't even know where to start. Then don't. I sat down on the edge of the bed. What do you want, Emma? I want to understand. She moved closer, slowly, like I might bolt. All this time you were this important person, and I never knew. Why didn't you tell me? I did tell you. I kept my voice flat. The first year we were married, I tried to explain what I did. You weren't interested. You'd change the subject or tune out or find a reason to leave the room? I don't remember that. You wouldn't, because you weren't paying attention. I looked at her directly. Emma, I could have come home with a crown on my head, and you wouldn't have noticed unless it was made of gold. She flinched. That's not fair, isn't it? I stood up. When's my birthday? June something. June 14th, we've been married 4 years. And you don't know my birthday. I moved toward the window. What's my favorite color? Blue? Green. What do I do when I'm stressed? She opened her mouth, closed it. I don't know. I listen to jazz, specifically Miles Davis. I've had the same playlist for 10 years. I turned back to her. You lived with me for 4 years, Emma. Shared my bed, shared my life. And you don't know the most basic things about me. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I'm sorry. For what? I asked gently. For not knowing me? For cheating on me? For trying to steal company secrets? For sending divorce papers by email? I shook my head. You have a lot to be sorry for, but apologies don't change anything. I thought you were just... She struggled for words. I thought you were just this normal guy who worked a normal job. I didn't know you were... Rich, I supplied. Powerful? Important? I smiled without humor. Would you have cheated on me if you'd known? No, of course not. You're lying. I said it as a fact, not an accusation. If you'd known from the beginning, you would have treated me differently. You would have been the perfect wife. Attentive, supportive. Exactly like you are with Marcus now. That's not true. It is true. I walked toward her slowly. Emma, you don't love people. You love what they can do for you. You loved me when you thought I was a steady paycheck. You loved Marcus when you thought he was a rich lawyer. If you find out tomorrow he's actually broke, you'll leave him too. Stop it. She put her hands over her ears. Stop saying that. You asked to understand. I gently pulled her hands down. This is understanding. You're not a bad person, Emma. You're just shallow. You can't help it. It's who you are. She pulled away from me, wrapping her arms around herself again. What happens now? Now you leave. I picked up the divorce papers from where I'd set them on the dresser. These are filed. We're done. You're free to be with Marcus or whoever comes next. And the corporate espionage thing. That's between Chen and Associates, and our legal team. I held out the papers. You're clear. You were just passing along information from your husband. Technically not illegal, just unethical. She took the papers with shaking hands. You could destroy me. Marcus too. I could. I opened the door for her. But what would be the point? You already destroyed yourself. I just made sure everyone saw it. She walked to the door, then stopped. For what it's worth, I really did love you. At the beginning. I know. I did, actually. I'd seen it in her eyes those first few months. You just loved security more. She left without another word. I closed the door and leaned against it, feeling the weight of 4 years of marriage lift from my shoulders. It was over. Finally. Truly over. 6 months later, I stood in front of the board of directors and accepted my promotion to Vice President of Strategic Operations. Thompson shook my hand, grinning. You earned this 10 times over, Noah. Thank you, sir. Drop the sir. We're colleagues now, equals. He pulled me aside after the formalities. I heard Emma and Marcus broke up. Really? I hadn't kept tabs on either of them. Didn't want to know. 3 months ago. Apparently she was seeing someone else. Again. Thompson shook his head. Some people never change. No, I agreed. They don't. You dodged a bullet. I dodged a missile. I smiled slightly. But I learned from it. What did you learn? I thought about that. That pretending to be less than you are doesn't protect you. It just attracts people who want you to be small. Thompson nodded sagely. Smart man. Your father would be proud. My father is proud. I checked my watch. I'm having dinner with him tonight, actually. Give him my regards. I left the office at 5. A novelty after years of working late. Drove to my father's house on the outskirts of the city. He was waiting on the porch, gray-haired and smiling. Vice President, he said, pulling me into a hug. I told you you'd make it. You did. I sat down beside him. I should have listened to you about Emma. I didn't tell you not to marry her. No, but you warned me. You said she didn't see me clearly. I said she didn't see you for who you were, he corrected. I thought maybe that would change with time. I was wrong. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sunset. Are you happy? He asked eventually. I considered the question honestly. I'm content. Maybe that's better. Maybe it is. He patted my shoulder. You've got time to figure out happy. That night I drove back to my penthouse and stood at the window, looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, Emma was probably with her new boyfriend. Marcus was probably rebuilding his reputation. Martinez was probably looking for a new job. And I was here. Successful. Alone. Free. I thought about who I wanted to be. Not the role I played at work. Not the husband I'd tried to be for Emma. Just me, Noah Carter, 33 years old. Vice President of Strategic Operations. Son of a good man. Maybe someday someone's partner, but only if they saw me clearly from the beginning. No more pretending. No more playing small. If someone couldn't love me for exactly who I was, complex, successful, flawed, and real, Then they weren't worth my time. I pulled out my phone and deleted Emma's contact. Deleted Marcus's. Deleted everything connected to that chapter of my life. Then I opened my music app and played Miles Davis. Let the smooth jazz fill the apartment while I poured myself a drink and settled onto my couch. Tomorrow, I'd start working on the new account Thompson had assigned me. I'd meet with clients, review strategies. None. And do the work I'd always been good at. But tonight I was just going to sit here and listen to music and be grateful that I'd finally stopped pretending. The divorce papers were filed. The company was stronger than ever, and I was free to build whatever life I wanted next. Not a bad ending, all things considered. Not a bad beginning either. 1 year later, I was at a coffee shop when a familiar voice said, "Is this seat taken?" I looked up. A woman stood there, holding a latte and smiling hopefully. She was pretty, not stunning like Emma, but warm-looking, genuine. "It's free," I said, gesturing to the chair. She sat down, and we chatted for a few minutes about nothing important. The weather, the coffee, the crowd. Then she asked, "What do you do?" I almost said the old answer. Just an analyst. The safe answer. The small answer. But instead I smiled and told her the truth. I'm vice president of strategic operations for a tech company. It's challenging, sometimes stressful, but I love it. She lit up. That sounds fascinating. Tell me more. So I did. And when she asked questions, they were real questions, informed, interested. She wasn't intimidated by my success or trying to calculate what I was worth. She just wanted to understand who I was. We talked for 2 hours. Before she left, she gave me her number. "I'd love to continue this conversation sometime." "I'd like that," I said honestly. "Full disclosure," she added, smiling. "I looked you up while you were getting your refill. Saw some articles about your company. I want you to know I'm interested in you, not your position." "How do I know that?" I asked, half joking. "You don't." She shrugged. "But I'm willing to prove it over time if you're willing to take the chance." I thought about Emma, about pretending to be less than I was, about hiding and protecting myself and where that had gotten me. Then I thought about my father's words. "You've got time to figure out happy." "I'm willing to take the chance," I said. She smiled. "Good. I'm Sarah, by the way." "Noah." I shook her hand. "Pleased to meet you." And for the first time in a long time, I meant it. The past was done. Emma was gone. The lies were over. This was a new chapter, one where I showed up as exactly who I was from the very first page. I was done hiding, finally.